We created this record with Spud called Tonight. And it was, St. Lunatics of Nelly and the full band. They got signed to Universal about 6 months after we dropped that record. They took us off of the record and put Brian McKnight on there and didn't pay us a dime for it. We didn't get writers credits, nothing. That was our first introduction to the music industry.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I am here, as always, with my co-host, Tyler Kelly. Today, we're at Venture Cafe St. Louis, and if you're not familiar, Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of entrepreneurs anywhere in the world on a Thursday evening. So if that's something that interests you, I suggest you check it out in a Venture Cafe city close to you. Now, I'm very excited tonight because we have a very special guest. If you've heard that song over and over, our intro song, this is the man that produced that song, wrote, recorded it. So I'm very happy to have him on the show tonight. So Courtney Orlando is with us. Thanks for being here, Courtney.
Oh man, pleasure, bro. Pleasure. Yeah.
Courtney Orlando, formerly known as JR, is an urban soul artist, songwriter, and Grammy award-winning producer. His career highlight Grammy win in 2013 was for hip-hop artist Lecrae.
Yep.
And you've seen and heard Courtney's work on media outlets such as BET, MTV, GMC, Daystar, and more. With multiple Grammy, Dove, and Stellar Award nominations as a songwriter, his mission is to give the world music that feeds the soul, music that inspires, music that awakens, and music that speaks to people. And you're also the owner of So Hot. You got a new album out.
That's right.
And for the listeners and viewers of this show, you're the one that came up with the music for Innovation City.
Yes, sir. Yep, I'm very proud of it. Yeah, that joint is dope, man. Yeah,
and we love it.
Yeah.
When you first sent it to us, I mean, this is no exaggeration.
Yeah. We
literally listened to it like 1,000 times.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like every time somebody walked in the office that was new, we were like, boom, welcome to Innovations.
Yeah, man. No, synergy, bro. Yeah.
Good music doesn't get old. That's my point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot to talk about in this episode, but I always love a good story. So I'd love to hear the story, how you got into producing, how you got into your career.
Yeah, man. So born and raised in St. Louis. I grew up in a city municipality called Berkeley. And I still rep that little town to this day because it's where I got my start, in sports. It's where I got my start with the ladies, with the homies, culture, middle class neighborhood, and that's where I was introduced to my homeboy Brad Young, who is a Grammy nominated producer here in the city too. He's done work with Mali, who in the city. He's produced most of her stuff. Yo Gotti, who is a dope rapper right now. Bone Thugs and Harmony, Lil Wayne, just to name a few. But I met him at around 14 years of age. And, at the time I wasn't really trying to do music. I would want to be friends with him and my other homeboy, David, because they had all the girls. So I was just like, yo, like, show me, like, teach me, you know what I'm saying? Teach me your ways. Cause I just wanted the ladies. But one of the ways he taught me was like, yo, the ladies dig dudes who know how to sing. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, oh, okay. So, I grew up in church. I was always around music, but I didn't think I could sing. Now, I will say that I did learn how to play the drums in church. So I knew rhythm, but I didn't think I could sing. And so then one day we went to one of my partner's house and we were sitting at the piano, an old piano out of tune, and we loved R. Kelly. So we started playing, some of the chords to 12 play, and I ain't trying to big up R. Kelly, but back then, like he was a guy. I mean, he still is one of the greatest songwriters of our age. And so, we were just trying to play something that was similar to that. And then that's where it started. We started just kind of playing these chords, singing, and my homies would come in and they'd be like, shut the hell up, y'all sound horrible. But we were so passionate about music that even though, like, in their eyes we was trash, but we knew that we had something. He could sing already. I couldn't. And I didn't know I could. And so that's where it started. So from that little piano in my homeboy's, house, kept us coming back and back. So we would listen to music, listen to Jodeci, we would listen to Tupac, or we listen to Biggie or whoever was out at the time, and then we would go back and try to replay it on this piano. And so we became passionate about it. I learned how to sing and actually be some good. And then 16 years of age, we get a hold of his cousin's sequencer keyboard. It was a chord keyboard. It was an M364. And got that keyboard, brung it home, and it had a 16-track sequencer on it. And we learned how to make tracks that night. And when I tell you, I made my very first track, I was 16 years old. And when I made that track, once we found out how to program and work it, I knew that this was what I was going to be doing for a living, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt, I was like, I'm born to do this. And that was the beginning. So from 16, and then 17, 18, I got, we got it, because me and Brad did everything together. We got an internship at a studio called Class X Studios that was on Jennings Station Road, and it was like half mom and pop's CD store. That's when they used to sell CDs, and it was a studio in the back. So when the store hours closed, you would have the artists come in that scheduled time, and me and him, I remember us signing papers, right? And we had to my mama had to come sign because I was still considered a minor for me to work there. And that's why I learned how to work the ASR 10, which is a iconic production keyboard that Timbaland and Pharrell, a lot of guys use. Learned how to work Pro Tools wasn't even out back then. Kind of giving away my age now. And I learned how to just work a studio. I learned how to all the ins and outs, and how to record, and use ADAT tapes at that time, and and run a full session. So that's where it all started.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
The DAT tape.
Yeah, man.
I did work with one of those. So I went to school we've had this conversation before. I went to school for music. So I think that was when the ADAT was out by the time I was playing with it. But we had one in the studio.
Could you imagine producing a record where you had to record it on a tape? You know what I mean?
Yes. But people have done it. People have done it.
I mean, that's how it got going, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when Pro Tools first hit the scene, and it was like a unicorn. It was like this guy came in, was a rep, and at the time, Pro Tools was like $4,000 to $6,000. You know what I'm saying? It may have been more than that, but I knew only prominent studios could afford it. And this rep came in and was telling us, and I was in the studio out in Hazelwood, and these rich old Hall of Fame black guys that was pianists, I remember, and they was had a studio in that basement, and they were talking about getting this thing, and the rep came by and showed it to them, and we was like, get the hell out of here. We was like, are you telling this is a computer that can record out? And you know what I'm saying, all we knew was tape. So we knew what the benefits was from not having to retake and cut tape, and you mess up one time having to go back and get a whole roll of tape or cut that part out. We knew what this meant for the industry. It was crazy. So it's like a privilege, right, to be around for the golden era. You know what I mean? Well, some people would, if you are a purist, you would call Pro Tools an abomination if you still like 2-inch tape and stuff like that. But that was a golden age. To see where analog transitioned to digital was crazy.
Yeah. So how do you get from there to Grammy Award-winning producer?
So, 16, 17 years of age, just kept at it, got better and better. And I remember, I was in a couple R&B groups. And I remember also I was torn because I was playing baseball too. I was really good at baseball, had a couple scholarships. And I remember in baseball, I could no longer produce. And I remember it was a point where I was like, I thought I was going to play baseball for a living, and I just started to suck. And I couldn't hit a curveball, I was cleanup batter. And it's almost like Samson, you know what I'm saying? The story of Samson. It's almost like my strength, my talent for baseball just went away. But then my love for music just escalated. You know what I mean? And so got better. And started getting recognition from the guys over at Saint Studios. And so if anybody's familiar with Saints, and a record company called D2. D2 was a company who signed Nelly and the Saint Lunatics. So me and Brad were doing sessions at D2, and we ran into Nelly and the Saint Lunatics, and we started making music with those guys. And particularly with their producer at the time named Spud. So we created this record with Spud, and this was when they first got their deal with Universal. Well, actually, it was before they got their deal with Universal. And we did this record called Tonight, and it was, St. Lunatics of Nelly and the full band. And they got signed to Universal about 6 months after we dropped that record. And for us, that was the biggest placement we had ever made. But it was also a time where we got we kind of got broken into the music industry because they took us off of the record and put Brian McKnight on there. Right? So they made the record when they didn't have a deal. And of course, like, now that I know the game, we were two some, just unknown R&B guys, songwriters. And they was like, we need somebody who has a following voice. They put Brian McKnight on there, and it took us off and didn't pay us a dime for it. We didn't get writers credits, nothing. That was our first introduction to the music industry. From there, we said, oh, everybody's going to know us from now on. And we're going to take care of our business, and we're just going to go hard. And so from there, I put sports aside, put everything aside, just started going hard at the music. Ended up getting my first placement with a group out of Philadelphia called The Cross Movement. And at the time, they were selling about 60 to 100,000 records. Underground hip-hop group, but yet still had a dope following and a dope movement. Ended up placing a record on there and got my first check, and it was like 20 grand. You know what I'm saying? And I was like 23 years old. And I was making that per year, working for little rinky-dink jobs. And from there, and a good producer, a good songwriter, it's like gossip. It spreads. You see what I'm saying? And so, once somebody said, yo, who did this track? Then that artist would call me. Then this label would call me. Then this publishing company would call me. And then one placement became 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And before you know it, I found myself building a relationship with this guy named Lecrae. And Lecrae was one of the biggest Christian hip hop guys at the time. And had no idea that we would win a Grammy some years later. But I ended up producing his biggest single. I forgot the name of that album. But fast forward to 2013, we worked on an album together called Gravity. And I produced 5 joints on there and also featured on the title track, which is called Gravity. Lo and behold, so I've been, granted, all in between, the span of like 4 to 5 years, I have been nominated for Grammys for my work that I've done. So being nominated wasn't new to me, but this one felt special, special enough that I brung my son with him. He was 16 at the time, I believe, and we flew to LA, and I stayed with my homeboy DJ Mowski, who is now the official DJ for the LA Sparks and the LA Rams. Stayed with him, and I said, bro, I feel good about this one. Took my son with me, man, to the Grammys, and we won. Wow. And my son had a chance to experience his old man, being a part of a project that took home a Grammy. You know what I mean? So that's crazy. Still to this day, I feel super privileged because I know people who deserve it way more than me, jazz musicians, blues musicians who run circles around me artistically, and they just still remain nominated or haven't even got a nomination yet. So I thank God every day for being able to go home and look at that plaque and be like, wow, like this is a Super Bowl for, this is a ring for an artist, what I mean? So yeah, man. Yeah. So many years of producing for other people, and then at some point you're like, I'm gonna do this for myself. Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
So tell me about that shift.
Yeah. So I will always write hooks, right? So, I was a guy named Flame who is from St. Louis. And you may recognize that name for a couple of reasons. One is that he just won his suit against Katy Perry, $2.7 million, on a track that I still to this day wish I had produced because I produced his first 2 records. Me and Flame created, his first 2 records together, and I would write hooks and feature on his songs, but never would put out my own music. And I remember the label I was signed to, they were like, yo, you should be an artist. And I was like, word? You think I got what it takes? And they was like, yeah, look at all this stuff you featured on with us and with Flame and these other artists. And so they signed me. That was 2005. And I put together my first full-length record. It was called Metamorphosis. And it was a success. For an independent company, I think we sold around 20,000 records. And for independent underground, and that was good. And that's when I was like, yo, I want to do this. And so 2008, I put out another record called Life by Stereo. And then put out a couple records, mixtapes and stuff throughout the years. And while I've had some relative success as an artist, solo artist, my greatest accomplishments has happened as a composer. But yet I still have a great following as an artist, and it keeps me just telling my truth, and it keeps me, feeding those who grew up with my music since 2005. Still hear people now talk about when they were in college, your music got me through college, got me through this. And so if you can, I got a fan base of about 50,000. Shoot, I can work with that. Any artist can work with that, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of where I'm at with this new project, and just speaking to my audience, my core, and yeah, man, I'm digging it.
So I think you've got to like participate and do and accomplish all that in a pretty unique time in the music business.
Yes.
So you've probably got to see a lot of different angles, and a lot of things change really, really fast.
Absolutely.
Faster than anything that's happened like in the last 50 years prior to it.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to pursue a career in music in any facet,
yeah,
like what's changed and what do they have to do now?
So thankfully, the main thing that keeps people coming back to music is the music. Like, that's the thing, I mentor a few artists right now, and we just talk about, right now we're still in cultivation stage, and they so bad want to put out music. And I'm like, we're like, you're not ready. But they have the potential, and they will be dope when they drop. But, right now, I tell any artist, music has to consume you. And thankfully, that has never changed and will never change. The art, the product on which we produce, comes from a very intimate and a place of conviction that you cannot turn it off. I tell them, I say, you have to be haunted by your craft, which means that when you sleep, it's speaking to you. When you awake, it's speaking to you. Sometimes when it shouldn't be speaking to you, at the dinner table, or with your wife, with your kids, like something that you are madly passionate about and that the world needs, it should come from people who are haunted by their craft and this passion. So that never changes. But what has changed in the last 10, 15 years is social media. So I would tell the artist that wants to be an artist in this day, no doubt, keep the main thing, your art. But seldomly right now, if you are not visual, like you are seeing us, not only hearing this audio, but you're seeing this visual podcast, you have a hard chance of succeeding, because right now people want to see you and hear you, and not only just hear you, like they want to see your persona. So if you're a goth artist and you dark and grimy, they want to see your dark and griminess. If you in trap, they want to see you with the money up to your ear and talking about, can we curse on this?
If you want.
Hoes and bitches and stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah, that's what they want. If you are talking about love and family and God and faith, they want to see that. They want to see the person behind the music. And a person that's been in the game as long as I have, that's one of the hardest things truths that I had to learn about the business of music right now. And I never will forget Darren Jackson, which we all know, good friend of ours. We were out at Sub-Zero, and I was telling him, I was like, that's social media, bro. I was like, that ain't me. I was like, and he was like, bro, your career will die without it. And I was like, bro, come on, man. I was like, art. I was like, bro, we just got to put out the art. He was like, do me a favor. He was like, take a picture right now. I was fly, like I am now. I had a haircut. We were all, just got fresh and just having drinks. And he said, take a picture and just create just say chilling with the homeboys, thinking of a master plan. And he was like, post that and see how many likes you get and how fast. So I was like, oh, okay. Let me see what you're talking about, bro. And I posted it, and I got like 130 likes in like an hour. And usually my usual post would get like 130 likes in a week. But what he showed me was a lot of social media is you're selling your either what appears to be real or what is real to an audience that is not only buying your music to hear your music, but they want to see your face. They want to hear your expression. They want to see what makes you come alive, what makes you cry, what makes you angry. And for me, DJ Mowski, he told me, he was like, bro, look at it like this. He was like, look at it as you documenting your life and your passions. And I'm one of those, I hate social media, like when you have to constantly post. So what I've learned is to only post a moment that feels genuine and real. And I refrain from posting something that feels manufactured. But I would say to the person that is, to answer your question, and I know it took a long time getting there, is that you've got to appease to social media. You've got to brand yourself. And if you don't like doing it, you got to hire somebody who will do it for you.
What I feel like there's also additional part of that. So we're at Venture Cafe. This is entrepreneurs. This is business people. This is startups.
Yeah.
So you perfect your artistry.
Yeah.
But then you also have to know some business.
Absolutely. So true. Yep. So if we're talking about long term, if we're talking about making a living from this, because it's one thing, right? So I remember it was a Instagram comedian who had millions of followers, and I forgot the station he was on, but he said he had millions of followers and was broke, right? 2.4 million followers and all these views and millions of views, but he was broke. And he said it's because I didn't know the business, right? So after you get after you've done what you've done with your art, and you can be the most grassroots, person. What's the guy, man? I forgot his name, man. He's one of the most amazing talents in the last 10 years. Justin Timberlake mocked him in a Saturday Night Live skit. What's that guy's name? He makes so much.
What kind of music does he make?
It's like singer-songwriter. He has a beard. Like,
the Bon Iver?
Bon Iver. Yes. You can be a Bon Iver type artist and who releases a project every 4 years or so. But even he has a brand that can be marketed. And the Saturday Night Live thing was a part of that. So if you didn't know who Bon Iver was before the Saturday Night Live thing, you knew who he was when the iconic skit, with Justin Timberlake and all of them. But I learned this with the lesson with Nelly and Saint Lunatics. The reason why we got screwed on that, because that was easily $100,000 that me and Brad could have pocketed. We could have split 50-50, at least 25-30 grand for these artists that never had a placement. But because we didn't have what the industry refers to in songwriting world as a split sheet, we got screwed. What does that mean? That means that we went in as, optimistic artists that just wanted to create with this producer, and we didn't ask the questions, or we were ignorant to the right questions to ask. Where is this going? What's the potential of this going to a record, that can possibly be signed to a major record deal that has distribution? What are your plans? What are your plans for this record? Who owns the rights to the lyrics that were just penned, to the melodies that were just penned? So now I teach my students, you should not leave a session without doing a split sheet once you complete a song. A split sheet just says that it documents who did what, right? So if we are in a session, you make the track and I do the lyrics, this split sheet documents that. It says so-and-so composed the music on this day, and so-and-so wrote the music, this percentage of the music this day. This is their or her or his publishing info, and this is my publishing info. You both have copies of that, and that is the document that stands in court to say if that record is picked up by Jay-Z or Beyonce or Kanye or whoever, a year from now, they know who wrote the melody and penned the lyrics, and you get paid for it. That's just the beginning of it. And then, of course, you go into publishing, and then you go into your management, and you go into your splits as an artist, what's your points or percentages. And then you got to hire people for PR, and then you have to make sure you're doing all of these things. So here's the thing. If you're not ready to manage your own career as an artist, then don't become an artist or be prepared to get screwed. Because no artist, no business owner, or even if you are an artist, can run your business like you can. So it doesn't mean you have to do everything, but it means you have to learn how to delegate, and you have to oversee everything. So yes, that is the greatest component next to the art if you want to make a living being an artist in this industry.
Wow.
Yeah.
So last year was a pretty tough year for you. Mm-hmm. And from that, you were inspired to do what you're doing now in terms of the new album. So just walk us through all that.
Yeah, man. So, so I've been, and I am right now a champion and an advocate for mental health. And what I've learned is that I'm not alone, especially when it comes to an artist. and artists seem to be keenly subjected to issues dealing with mental health because of how we look at our art and how we perceive others to perceive our art. So for me, I experienced a lot of trauma that I did not address. And especially in the African American community, we're so used to trauma and oppression that we just used to shrugging it off like, that's just life. And you keep moving, you know what I'm saying? But that's not healthy. So if any human being experiences some type of trauma, you need to talk about it. So what happened with me, I was in a car accident that almost claimed my life. Split my forehead down to my, Justin, what's going on, homie? That's the homie Justin, you know what I mean? Split my forehead, down to my skull, 50 stitches. That following month, I would have a heart attack. I was only 35.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? A year later, I would lose my best friend to a heart attack. A year later, I had another heart attack. A year after that, I lost my father to a heart attack. So, and I didn't talk about it. I prayed about it, right? So the first thing, those of us who are God-fearing people or believe in the power of prayer, you pray about it and you're like, God help me, I feel like shit. But that's not enough, because the mind, there's so many facets to the mind that it has to be, you have to explore them and see where those thoughts went and what that means, what great loss means to a person. So I got into counseling. So I've been seeing a counselor for about 6 months now. And I was able to identify that, the reason I would start a project, I got a whole 16-track project sitting, has been for 2 years now. Because I would start a project and then not have the motivation to finish it. And I would hear voices like, oh, you washed up. Nobody wants to hear from you. Oh, this music is all trash, bro. Like the production is cornball. All these lies that you hear, and you lost it. And then that one lie builds upon another, and it's a snowball effect, And before you look, and my manager would be like, Jay, where we going, baby? What you got for me? And one day I'd be like, yo, ready to take on the world. And I'd be like, oh yeah, just created this song the other day. Send it to him. The next day he hit me. He'd be like, yo, where we at? I'd be like, man, I'm trash, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't nobody want to hear old Eddie Kane. You know what I'm saying? That's a 5 Heartbeat reference for anybody may not know it. But I was like, why am I feeling like this? Something is not natural. I lost something, and the only thing I can do is pinpoint when it started, and it pinpointed when I had my first heart attack, in the first series of incidents. And then meeting with a counselor and therapist, he was like, yo, bro, you've been dealing with depression. And so from those meetings helped me to start writing this album that's called Things Below. And the first single I just dropped from that project, Anti-Hero, a couple weeks ago, was the first offering from that project. But it's just documenting, my experience with it. And now, I'm getting my body in line, working out, eating a more healthier diet, seeing my counselor, and surrounding myself with positive people, constantly, I have an amazing wife for 14 years. And she feeds me with the word of God and feeds me with, powerful words of influence and affirming who I am. And so that's where I'm at. Now it's just a walk of faith. So now I'm just like, I gotta let this art just come out of me. Whatever I've been going through, I gotta document it. I gotta talk about it. And that's where I began, man. So that, so this year for me is a year of faith. Like I am saying goodbye to a past that told me something different about myself, and hello to what I always known myself to be.
It's crazy how people release music.
Yeah.
So, you got the new album coming out, you're releasing a track here, a track there. It's like, I don't know if there's a method. Yeah. If it's just people just trying things, right?
Yeah.
But the point is, like, this big project is coming out.
Yes.
So how can people get a hold of it? Where can they find you? Website, social, all that good stuff.
Yes. So you can find me on all social media platforms, Courtney Orlando. The only platform that I couldn't get Courtney Orlando on is Twitter. And believe it or not, it is a violinist who has like 84 followers. And I reached out to her to see if she would let me have that that handle, and she has not responded. So Twitter is actually Courtney Orlando, so it's without the O and the R. But everything else, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, is Courtney Orlando. And I would say IG, of course, right now, especially for artists, is the biggest platform to see what's going on, in the world of music. So, follow me there, and I'm dropping visuals weekly. Actually, just shot some footage from my newest video to Anti-Hero tonight, and I'm going to be wrapping up tomorrow. That video should be up shortly within the next week or so. Then I'm going to be shooting another video featuring the homeboy Thizzle, who is actually from St. Louis as well. And I'm looking to drop the project either December or January.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Courtney, it's been a pleasure talking to you again.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks
man.
for being on the show and sharing, I think, a lot of things that'll help people and a lot of things that sometimes people are afraid to talk about.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I appreciate you.
It's all good, brother. All good, man. My
Thanks,
pleasure.
just thanks for being a friend and part of this Innovation City movement.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely. I mean, it's been a pleasure. Been knowing you guys for a few years now, and I know what you do. I know you do good work and building the community as well. So it's a privilege.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. If you're in St. Louis, visit us on a Thursday night. You can find details at vincafstl.org. You can also connect with us on social at We Are Slam or at Venture Cafe STL.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye.